Guys, I want to talk to you briefly tonight about some other situations involving inequalities that we were unable to get to last time. So let's check out this first example, and we're going to talk about how this is a little bit different. So in this question, for the first time, we're starting to see some negative coefficients. We see this negative 2x that's hanging out here. So when I go through trying to solve this, a lot of things are going to happen the exact same way. We are going to take away 7 on both sides. And it's going to leave us negative 2x is less than 15 minus 7, which is 8. And now we're going to divide both sides by negative. And this is going to trigger something in us. We're going to, every time we see that we're dividing something by a negative, we're going to flip our inequality. And this is something that's a little bit new. So when dividing by a negative, the inequality flips. Ooh, that's not, there we go. The inequality flips. So whenever we're dividing by a negative, the inequality is going to flip. So in this case, 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. That's coming down. My x is coming straight down. And now instead of saying less than, this is going to flip to greater than. And everything else is pretty much exactly the same about this question. We're going to set up a number line with negative 4 in the middle. We'll use an open circle here because it says greater than negative 4. And because it's greater than, we're going to shade it to the right. All right, the number that's hanging outside here is positive infinity. So my interval will go from negative 4 to infinity, parentheses around the infinity, and parentheses around negative 4 because we're not including negative 4. The only thing that's new here is our new rule, that whenever we divide by a negative, the inequality flips. And we want to be careful about that. That's a very easy place to make a mistake. We don't want to make silly mistakes on a question like that. So here's another question for you. 4 minus 6x is greater than or equal to 28. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes right now to try to solve that. Try to go through the whole process here. Don't forget our new rule. And see what you get as your answer. Great, so let's give this a look. We're going to subtract 4 on both sides. We're going to get negative 6x is greater than or equal to 24. We're going to divide both sides by negative 6. When I divide by a negative number, my inequality has to flip. So instead of being greater than or equal to, it's now going to be less than or equal to, and I'm going to get x is less than or equal to 24 divided by negative 6 is negative 4. On our number line, we'll put our negative 4 in the middle. Solid circle this time on negative 4. We're going to graph this less than, which is to the left. And when I write my interval here, I'm going to end up writing something like from negative infinity up to negative 4, including negative 4, never including the negative infinity. All right, so that's pretty much the only difference from last night so far. It's really just to remember that little rule that whenever we divide by a negative, we're going to flip the inequality over. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight is compound inequalities. And a compound inequality is a little bit different because it's really two questions at once. And we're going to circle these questions. So one of the questions says x plus 2 is less than 7. That's one of the questions right there. And the other question overlaps in the middle, kind of like a Venn diagram, and includes the other answer that's on the other side. So we're going to write these out. 3 is less than or equal to x plus 2. And x plus 2 is less than 7. So notice all we've done here is split this into two separate inequalities, and now we're going to solve them both. In the first one, to get the x by itself, I'm going to go minus 2 on both sides. And I'm going to get 1 is less than or equal to x. And on the right, I'm going to minus 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get x is less than 5. When I go to graph this, I'm going to have to graph the 1 and the 5. I want to be greater than or equal to 1, so I'm going to put a solid circle on 1. And I want to be less than 5, so I'm going to put an open circle on 5. And if I want to be bigger than 1 and less than 5 at the same time, I'm just going to color in right here between. And how do you think I could write the interval now that I've shaded in between there? How could I write this interval? Cool. So yeah, the interval is going to go from 1 to 5. We're going to be careful to include 5 and not include, to include the 1 and to not include the number 5. So that would be our interval there. Here's another question. I would like you guys to give this a try. I know we've only done one example, but see what you can come up with. Give it a go. Awesome. So this one we're going to solve the exact same way. We're going to set up our two equations. So we'll circle this like a Venn diagram where the middle's overlapping. We've got 7 is less than or equal to x minus 2. And we've got x minus 2 is less than or equal to 15. We're going to add 2 to both sides and get 9 is less than or equal to x. Add 2 to both sides and we're going to get x is less than or equal to 17. On our number line, we're going to include the number 9 and the number 17, and there's obviously a lot of numbers in between there. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I did too many, but that's okay. 9 and 17 are on that number line. They're both solid circles because they're both including the point, so we're going to put 2 solid circles on there, and then we're going to color in everything in between. It's going to be bigger than 9, but less than 17, everything in between. And then, of course, your interval here to run from 9 to 17 is going to go from 9 to 17, including the 9 and including the 17. And that's about it. I don't want this video to get too long, so I'm going to stop right there. But on Edmodo, I've added a couple of extra questions that I would like you to try. So finish up with this video. Make sure that you fill out the survey at the end. And then check in on Edmodo and try to answer those last 2 practice questions in your notebook. We'll start class tomorrow talking about those questions, and then we'll be getting in groups and proceeding with our lesson. Good luck, guys.